Hey you guys, welcome back. This is another Dragonflight Season 1 dungeon walkthrough. This one will be on Court of Stars, a returning dungeon, so it's going to be a little bit more relaxed than the newer dungeons, I'd say. If you've already watched like the Ruby Life Pools walkthrough, this will seem a lot simpler. But there is a catch with this dungeon where you need to know a ton of stuff about the dungeon. Like there's all these random buffs that you can get with certain professions or certain classes, and I'll talk about them as we go. I'm also going to link a image. I'll show them here, but they'll also be in the video descriptions. So like this is a list of all the possible buffs you'll get. I edited out a couple things because this is out of date. The buff that the Arcane Power Conduit gave in Legion is now different, not nearly as good. And I'm pretty sure this is the case. I put that in there on the image as well, but I'm not entirely sure on that. Everything else I think is still correct. So like you still get one offensive buff, one defensive buff, and one utility buff out of these three lists. And that's kind of discouraging in super high keys because the utility buffs are either 3% HP and mana per second basically, or per 3 seconds, or you get a movement speed buff. And the first one is way better. Like this one is far better for high keys than the movement speed buff. Anyways, we'll get into the video. While we're right on the boat, I did have one more thing though. The other thing I'll link on the video description is the map. Once you get into the second boss area, you can see there's all these different buffs here. If you've never done this dungeon, there's all these possible buffs that will spawn. And this map kind of shows you their location as well as which classes and professions can take care of them or pick them up for the group. And they're all permanent once you activate them, or they do like a one-time thing, like summon one of the mini bosses. So yeah, here's Court of Stars. Once you get into the dungeon, there's this mandatory RP. You take these boats, someone's going to get shafted with one of the slow boats. So this takes quite a while. But you just start the key, you walk up to the lantern, and then the guy comes and picks you up and puts you over here. This is now where you spawn from here on out in the entire dungeon. This area. So there's one guard here. You definitely want to skip him if you can, if you have a rogue or a demon hunter with imprison. Demon Hunter is incredibly valuable in this dungeon, and so is Rogue, but Demon Hunter especially, it just has so many things. Which I will talk about as we go. So if you don't have something like that, just pull that guy up here, to this upper level, and include him in this first pull. What you can do, they increase count in this dungeon by the way, so you used to skip a lot of this stuff, but now you kind of need a lot of trash, so you want to pull something like this pack with this construct as your first pull. The construct is a high health mob compared to everything else. You can cleave off of that. The cats will be really dangerous. At some key level, they're going to start almost one-shotting people, maybe even one-shotting them. But you don't have to worry about those so much. So as a tank, the primary focus in this entire dungeon is all the frontal cleaves. There are so many frontal cleaves. So there's a Quelling Strike right there. I think it's a guard is his name, Duskwatch Guard or something. That frontal Quelling Strike right there is basically a one-shot on almost every key level. I think it probably wouldn't have killed me on 15, but it'll kill me on like a 18 fortified on this class. Duskwatch Guard, yeah, that's the name. And then also the construct, well, there's so many trees, man. The construct just did a charge smash puddle right there. As soon as that goes off, you just want to step out of it. That one's a homing frontal, so it'll hit you no matter where you are, but you can step out of it before you take any damage, I'm pretty sure. Either that or it just doesn't do that much damage. Also with these Guardian constructs, of note, you want to kick the charging station casts if there are any other mobs, because it doesn't heal them, but it heals everything around them for quite a bit. Alright, so we're going to go down here. I had someone click on the pillar back there. You can see it's not glowing anymore, but this pillar... There's a bunch of these throughout the dungeon, but you want to take care of all of them except for one before you fight this first boss, Patrol Captain Gerdo. And there's a reason for that. Like I said, this dungeon is just a huge knowledge check. Alright, so then... Now you want to do this Dox pull. I think this is probably going to stay as the meta, this dungeon, or for this X-Pack this season, because you need so much count now. Like, if we didn't need so much enemy forces count, then you'd probably skip this pull, but this is a pretty good size count pull. As a tank, you just want to make sure you watch for all the frontals here. The group has one important kick. Nightfall Orb was about to go off there, and Luigi kicked it. This guy casts Nightfall Orb. I believe there's only one in this pack. It's the Arcanist that casts it. As you can see, there's just a million Infernals. Quelling Strike, Quelling Strike, Quelling Strike. Charged Blast from the Elemental is pretty much a one-shot as well. And then there's a Sentry up here that you can CC and kill by itself, or include it in the pull if you have Death Grip or something easy to get it in. The sentries will start running toward the nearest pillar anytime you pull them. So as you can see, I got hit by one charge blast there. It didn't kill me because it's a 15, but I probably would have died on a higher key. Fortification is the other thing that those guards cast. You basically just worry about that as like the last resort kind of stop. You primarily just want to avoid Infernals and kick Nightfall Orb, but if you can stop Fortification or kick them with the Silence, then that's really good because it's a big DR. I think it's like 30% or 40% DR. So I'm going to break this sentry. He won't attack, he'll just run at the nearest pillar. As soon as Stormbolt falls off, he starts running. And he's going to run at that pillar because it's the closest one, even though we already clicked it. So it's inactive, quote unquote, but you would still try to go to it and summon a reinforcement. And you can also kick their cast. If you let them get all the way to the pillar, you can kick the cast and then they won't try again. Then they'll just melee the tank. Alright, so it used to be the case in Legion, you could run through here without pulling the construct that I pulled first right here on the bridge. But they increased the aggro radius. And you could also, it used to be the case where you could run directly through here and basically only pull these worms in this pack. But now if you do that, you're going to pull like everything because the aggro radius is super high now. So what you want to do across the bridge is probably just CC that sentry because he's going to run to this pillar. And you don't want him to do that until all this trash is taken care of out of the way because you're going to end up pulling a lot. So for now, you want to pull this construct with these mana worms probably as like the third pull. Something to that effect. So someone pulled the sentry. I think I probably did, so I just said kill it real quick. It doesn't have a lot of health. So if you don't CC it, you can just do what I did there. You can chain in these mana worm groups to cleave with the construct. The construct has the biggest health pool by far. You can see the charge smash there. I just moved out of right away. Someone kicked charging station as well. And then I chained a group of mana worms. This one also has a Duskwatch guard in the pack. There's a Quelling Strike. It's really hard to see because of the damn trees. But yeah, just keep moving out of those mana worm explosions. Those explosions are very high damage as well. They'll probably kill you. Stand in several. And then this is the beacon I'm disabling. So I'm disabling the second one here. And we are to the first possible buff. So there's an orb that spawns inside this building for engineers, gnomes, and goblins, I believe. It was called the engineering orb in Legion. That's just what it was called by everybody. And what it did in Legion is it disabled all the guardian constructs, the big healthy mobs that I keep talking about. And now it's already been changed once. I don't know if they're going to change it again. But what it does now is it just stuns the constructs for, I think, 5 seconds every now and then. It's not a huge deal, so we're going to skip it even if it was there. But I should say, if you do want to get it, then you have to kill this sentry and this guard. There's another mob back there somewhere. You don't have to kill that third one, but you have to get rid of these two to click the orb if you're an engineer or one of the other two options. If you don't have a sap, you can also pull this sentry with this pack and just cleave down both sentries, or you can let them run to the pillar and then kick them. Either option works. You probably want to kill the cat and then chain into this pack. So this is a construct guard and bound energy. So the bound energy has one tank funnel, the construct has the charge smash funnel, and the Duskwatch guard has the Quelling Strike funnel. So all three of these have a funnel. Make sure you face them away. I'm sure you're sensing a common theme in this dungeon. Literally everything funnels. So I'm just kind of rotating as I fight these, just to try to passively avoid some of this stuff. The sentry also, or the guardian construct also casts suppress on a player, so you need 2 melee kicks at least to kick these things. You might need 3 kicks total, or like a 12-second kick and 1 15-second kick, like a demon hunter or shaman or warrior. I think warrior has a 12-second kick on all specs now with their talent trees. But anyway, so once you clear those out, then you got the first boss area. So what's important here is there's 3 pillars left. So there's 5 total pillars. We already took care of the first 2. These 3 you want to clear out, but you actually want to leave this one active. There's a pillar off the screen right here, but that one is too close to trash to click it without Ring of Peace or dropping combat after. You want to leave that active for that, and for the reason of making the RP for the last boss spawning shorter, if that makes sense. I'll talk about that again later in the video, but the last boss has some RP before he becomes active, and if you leave one pillar up, or if you guess wrong in the guessing game, then he'll do it faster. So I told everyone to leave that one up. I'm going to go take care of the far one here, and someone's going to click this close left pillar off the screen right there. And then lastly, I'm checking the pillars before I pull. So there's a flask sitting on this fountain right here behind my party frames. Someone already clicked it, but if you have a rogue in the group or anybody that's an alchemist, they can click this flask, and what it does is it'll kill the boss when he hits 25% HP. During the boss fight, he will go over and try to drink the flask. And if no one's poisoned the flask already, then he'll get like a 50% damage buff, I think, or attack speed, one of the two. But otherwise it'll just kill him straight up. So if you notice, I pulled a pack with this boss. It's like the easiest count option to pull with the boss. It just has one Quelling Strike guy and a bunch of mana worms that die pretty quick. But otherwise, this boss fight's pretty simple, so it's pretty much all in the tank, and it's a dodging game for everyone else. His big frontal backle ability goes about that far, and that far on either side of him. Then he starts the frontal where the tank is. So you can always keep your range just chilling in the back safe if you do it that way. So I'm always facing the boss one of these two directions. I think when he hits like 70% or something, he summons one ad from that active pillar that I told you about. But what I did is I just paralyzed it before it got to the group, and then it'll just despawn when the boss dies. So it came directly from the pillar that's active over there that we didn't click. You can also let it come in. You can kick it. It just takes 2 kicks to lock down. Kind of annoying. For this arcane lockdown, as soon as it goes on you, you get 3 stacks of a debuff. You'll see up here. You just start jumping the moment it gets on you, and you shouldn't die to it. It doesn't do that much damage at this key level, at least. Yeah, so we're making short work of this boss. Players are getting kind of strong on beta with recent changes. This is a 15 fortified, and he's already dead 1 minute in. About to drink the poison flask because he had 25% health. So yeah, that's the first boss. Pretty straightforward, nice and simple. We like those bosses. So now what you normally would do in a pug is as soon as this boss dies, you would actually go this direction up the stairs because that's like the direction of the dungeon. And one of my players, the rogue player, you can see up here on the map, is doing that for us because he's going to start the RP and open up the door to the graveyard. But you can go as a group and just fight the solo construct. You just don't want to do that in an organized group. It's kind of slow. So this is the back way. My rogue is going to run through the whole building and open the door for us, and this is the direction that the rest of the party goes in this situation. So this is the graveyard right here. This is the beginning of the dungeon as well. So you came up here at the very beginning, and this is where you spawn from here on out, instead of just down those stairs where you came up from. So as soon as my rogue gets past the building and goes through the doorway into this area, this door will open, and this trash and these 2 trash mobs will just die. They don't give count if you tag them before, so don't worry about that. Just patiently wait if you're doing this strategy. For any Legion pros, you might also remember that you can jump up here, like over and over above this invisible wall, and just actually cross this before the player opens the door. Kind of irrelevant, but something cool you can do. But yeah, so as soon as the door opens up, you can see him on the minimap up here. He's about to exit the doorway, I believe. Yep, so they die, and then we can go and do this first pull. One reason that you want to do this in an organized group is so that you can take care of this patrolling imp pack on top of one of these patrols, probably the 2-pack that patrols right here at the same time with cooldowns, because everyone's going to pretty much have cooldowns with all that running that we just did. And I will show you why that's important. And that's because these imps do a very deadly cast, and they do it fast, and there's a lot of them. As well as the Inquisitors. So the Inquisitors are the main danger mobs in this area. You always want to pull them separate from like the mini bosses that you spawn, but you can definitely pull them with a group of imps that I'm about to do. You kind of want to do that on both sides probably of the second boss area. So pull the imps as soon as they're lined up with the patrol, and I have an AoE CC ready. I swept there, and then you probably want to have a second AoE CC for all those fire bolts right after. The imps do die pretty quick, but you do need to have some kind of CC ready for them. So I'll talk about a few other things too. That's all the imps do is cast Firebolt, and then another like channeled fire attack. This Inquisitor has a mandatory interrupt, so you need several interrupts on him. I think 2 melee kicks would do it. But he also needs a stop on his Ice Storm, I think it's called. And then the Shadow Mistress, anytime there's a Shadow Mistress, you're just going to take a magic hit as a tank. Called Dark Slash. Or Shadow Slash right here. So let's see how much it hits me for. Half my health. Brewmaster's squishy as hell. So Ice Storm was the stun. Luigi stunned it before it even finished the windup, so it didn't do any damage. I think if it finishes the windup, someone's probably going to get one shot on a high key. Yeah, that's the first pull you should do in this area. And now that you've done the pull, now's the time to like look at the buffs and just start getting buffs. So going back to this map, we are right here, I think. So you can see like there's the Fell Orb right here to our left. There's the Bizarre Goods right here on our right. The Wounded Soldier or whatever it is, Nightfallen guy, is the healer. So the healer can always get that guy. Rogue, Warrior, and Leatherworking can always get Bizarre Goods. And then Demon Hunter and Warlock can get the Fell Orb. I don't know if we had the Fell Orb in this run. But there are lots of buffs that you should watch out for. And this is the good time to get them. So it looks like the Fell Orb is there. This is 10% critical strike damage, or crit chance, I believe. I think it's crit chance. So I'm pulling 2 of these guys while our Warrior or Rogue did the Bizarre Goods right here. So they just clicked on Bizarre Goods, and that summons the first mini-boss. So it's important to know that there's 3 mini-bosses up here off the screen by the second boss, and you have to kill all 3 of them in some way before you engage the second boss, otherwise she'll just murder you instantly. They have a 100% damage stacking buff when they're near each other is why. So I actually almost died here. I'll show you what happened. This mini-boss is a little bit different than it was in Legion already. They already made some changes. To all 3 of them, actually. They're all a little bit different now. But it does a AoE Scream of Pain that hits the whole party. I don't think you can line it. It just hits everyone. And then this Succubus does the Shadow Slash that I talked about earlier at the exact same time, and it almost kills me as a tank. Kind of scary. So make sure you press something for that. Whirling Blades is the same, it's just a little bit bigger than it used to be. Another cast that the little Succubus mobs have is Bewitch. I don't remember what it does, actually. Like a last priority kick, though. If you're a warrior, you can reflect the Shadow Slash. Alright, so that was the first mini-boss. We're still fighting it, but I'm going to pull in this Enforcer. So the Enforcers are what summons the mini-bosses over here to the left that I talked about. You can either use the Enforcers or one of the items on the sheet that I told you about. So let's go look at the sheet. So these Advisor Distractions, we already used this one, the Bizarre Goods. That any one of these items just summons one of the mini bosses without having to kill this Enforcer that's on the screen when I go back to it. So like there's also this statue that could have been here in that same area. The Bizarre Goods and statue are on the right side. The Discarded Junk is on the left side, and the Wounded Civilian is also on the right side. So actually 3 of them are on the right side now that I think about it. That's another good reason to do the graveyard side first. Anyway, again, those screenshots will be in the video comments or description, so be sure to check those out. Okay, so I'm pulling the Enforcer with this first mini-boss, because you can, with high coordination, you can do this where you just line the Fell Detonation cast. And it's important to know, you need to pull these Enforcers to this corner right here where I'm at as soon as possible, because they do the Fell Detonation pretty quick. So we're just line of sighting that cast and then cleaving down the mini-boss at the same time. You can pull stuff with the first and the third mini boss. I don't think you want to pull anything with the second. Second one is the eyeball. The eyeball does a lot of damage and requires a ton of kicks too. So I didn't pull the enforcer back to the LOS spot in time here. And you'll see my whole party kind of like freaks out and goes over here as fast as they can, because it does a lot of damage if you get hit by it. And it leaves a nasty dot. So you can see it's actually hurting me pretty good on a tank. Alright, so that's the enforcer. As soon as the enforcer dies, the second mini boss will start coming down here. It'll either go left or right to get to wherever the enforcer died to like check it out, check out what happened. And this is the one that you want to fight solo. So I actually pulled him to here for a good reason. So this is like the safe area at the moment. The enforcer could spawn. I'll just show the side that we're on right now. It could spawn like right here, or it could spawn somewhere right there. And the enforcer spawns like 15 seconds after the previous one dies. So there's always an enforcer around. And it can also spawn on the other side of the map in those two locations as well, which we'll go over there after this mob, and I'll show you what's going on that side. So now you can see on the minimap, the enforcer just spawned behind me. I won't pan my camera around yet, but it's like just off the screen over there where it spawned. And this is a safe area, so once you see the enforcer spawn, then you can move away from it, away from the patrol to not accidentally pull it. This eyeball used to only do the disintegration beam cast, and you would just line it in Legion. But now there's like additional mechanics. It's like the Thunderhead from Ruby Life pools now. It's got 2 dispels for the healer. And that was it. So that was the second mini boss. You probably want to avoid this pack in high keys. It patrols around the second boss area. And this is how you cross to the other side. So you can actually go right here by the boss. Or if the patrol was like right here per se, you could go all the way around behind the boss that way. It just takes a little bit longer. So this is the left side of the second boss area. I see a couple items. Anything glowing is an item that someone can probably click. Like here would have been the Starlight Brew. Here's the Blood Elf or Night Elf or Mage Orb, I think. Or Enchanting Orb. There's lots of things that can get that. The Waterlogged Scroll is over here off the screen, I think. I think we get that here in a little bit. Something important about the scroll is that you can either get the scroll or the brew, and the brew, they're both next to each other here. And the brew is far better. That's the regen one, whereas the scroll is just movement speed. The movement speed's nice, but it's not going to be like as crazy as regen is for high keys. Alright, so I'm doing the same thing on this side if you notice. I'm waiting for the imps to align with this 3-pack, and then I'm pulling them and AoEing them down with all my AoE stops. That's definitely the move. You want to get rid of the imps first on each side because they patrol the entire area. Make sure to stun that Ice Storm. We got Kidney just in time. Survive the Shadow Slash from the Mistress, and that's about it. The dog, I can't even tell you what the dog does. Nothing too crazy. So this is another item here. This you can either get the trap spawned or the engineering orb, like I talked about at the beginning of the video. The trap is far better right now. So what it does is puts a if you move the mini boss that spawns into the trap, then it will take 10% damage, 10% of its health instantly in damage, and then it'll also have a damage amplification on it for like 30 seconds, I believe. And this is just the current iteration. They changed it. It used to actually insta-kill the mob in Legion, which is a little bit overpowered. So I think this is a good change. Alright, so you can see the trap. So this was Blacksmithing or Hunter that activated this, and as soon as they activated it, the guy ran and just hung out right here next to it. But as the tank, you have to actually pull him into the trap, and then you can see it chunked his health right there, and he has this debuff right there. It's like a trap debuff. I think it's 25% increased damage taken. So it's definitely not negligible. This is the third mini boss. You can definitely pull this with trash too. In fact, if this were a higher key after these two mobs died, the Mistress and the dog, then I would chain him back into the Inquisitor with 3 imps. in the back. I think we go and kill them after this anyway. So I'm telling the group right now, we actually need more count. So before you fight the second boss, you want to be at 94% count. Because there's one more mob after that that gives count, and he's worth 6%. So I go back here and kill this 4-pack. And honestly, I should be pulling a few more mobs in the first area, probably, than I did in this video. Like, maybe you can add the 2-pack at the top of the stairs from the docks pull, which is the second pull we did. And then maybe, like, 1 or 2 other mobs, too. Maybe with the first boss, because the first boss is very easy. Alright, so that was that pack. That's something you can just chain into with that third mini-boss. So I do not recommend doing this, but because we're an organized group, we're just going to kill this pack. On high keys, this is a hard pack, though. There's quite a few kicks. The Inquisitor needs 2 kicks. The Guardian Construct needs 2 or 3 kicks. And the Constructs you cannot stun anymore. You could stun them in Legion. So I stop that Ice Storm with Ring. Picking everything we can. There's another cast. Charge Smash. There's a lot going on in this pull. Yeah, avoid that one if you can. So this is where you fight the second boss away from the patrol, as if the patrol was there. It goes all the way across here. So you just pull the boss back to here, and typically the meta strat is to start her right here, stack up as a group, and then move this direction for the rest of the fight. This is a pretty cool boss, actually. It's going to be a large healer HPS check in high keys. Every time she casts this Burning Intensity, gains more AoE ticking damage. I don't remember the values, but basically each stack she gets, she's going to hit harder. And everyone just takes damage throughout the fight. For the rest of the group, the challenge is you stack up to put these swirlies down. And then as soon as they go down, everyone moves this way. And then you AoE the imps that come out. And this is they're going to get blown up by this group. We're in a pretty organized group. But that is definitely the challenge. They'll start casting just like the patrolling imps do in the second boss area. So you want to make sure you have 2 AoE CCs at least for this fight in high keys. And you can usually just rotate between the two of them, like use 1 AoE CC per wave of imps. And then this boss also has a 2 kick rotation, so it's like a 12-second cooldown cast. If you let the cast go off, I think she just gets an additional stack of the AoE ticking burning intensity thing. But yeah, that's that boss. It's not really, I'm not showing you very much in this key because it's dying so fast, but trust me, it gets harder. Alright, so this is the RP event, and this is what I was talking about earlier by leaving 1 pillar up. So you could either leave 1 pillar up on the first boss, like we did in this video, or you could guess wrong and just like immediately ask one of these if they're the imposter. And you'll trigger like the imperfect run, quote unquote, so that you get the shorter RP at the end. But basically what the goal is here is if you have bigwigs, then these clues will pop up as soon as someone talks to these guys. These guys with the chat bubbles are marked on the minimap. You can see there's always one at the very start. There's usually 2 on the right and then 2 on the left. So there's 5 total clues. Everyone wants to talk to them as fast as they can. All the clue givers. And then after that, you can figure out who the imposter is. Play Among Us. You can see all the clues popping up. Bigwigs also gives you like a little display. So no cape, no gloves, it's female, and they have long sleeves. And there's one more clue. So I'm like looking at these mobs and trying to figure out if one of these matches the description. And I think I call out in comms as well. It's like, oh, okay, it's not upstairs. I've identified that the imposter's not upstairs, and that kind of helps narrow it down. So someone guessed wrong there. I couldn't tell you why, it's kind of blurry, but it sends him back to that second boss spawn area off the minimap. And he's stunned for like 10 seconds or so, and then he can come back and try again. So this is what it does when you find the spy, the imposter. It does the line, and then it says follow me, and then you follow him to the area where they transform into a Dreadlord. So what's cool about this is, and I don't know if this works for Paladin still, but if you have a Demon Hunter, as soon as you pick up all 5 clues, then you can use Spectral Sight, and just see which one's the imposter. So you can just look around the room with Spectral Sight and then go talk to him and it's done. You don't even have to play the game. It used to be done with Paladin as well in Legion. I think you can still do it if you transmog your shield to the Legion artifact shield. But Demon Hunter is definitely the best way to go. So Vengeance is looking good as well. Vengeance is probably going to be the play in this dungeon. Or Havoc. Havoc's looking good too. So one thing that's random but is nice to know, I guess, is if the imposter was downstairs, it always goes left up here at the start. And then if it's upstairs in those two groups upstairs, then it'll go to the right. So if it's upstairs, you get a much shorter patrol before this guy becomes active. And this Dreadlord itself has actually been changed quite a bit as well. So he used to do a Carrion Swarm Frontal, which he does not anymore. And now he's kind of just like a toned down version of Zolgamax from last season's Mythic Plus. So you basically want to have everyone in melee so that you can just stop these bats easily. There's no reason to run out to range anymore on this mob. His Shadow Bolt Volley doesn't stack up like it used to. It used to have a debuff that made you take 50% more damage from the next one, I think. But it does not do that anymore. So you just kill him while you stop these bats from hypnotizing people. That's about it. Vampiric Claws hits kind of hard, but it's not that bad. However, if he does start to become really difficult, or if they tune him up, then this is a use all your defensive cooldowns kind of fight for the tank, because this next boss just does not do that much damage to you. This is a party damage boss, just like the last one. So if you notice, as soon as he died there, I picked up the keys, and it's best to have someone pick up the keys as soon as the Dreadlord dies, and then someone else run to the door to open the last boss RP. So now, as soon as the door opens, they do some kind of RP here. This is the last or second to last boss of Nighthold back in the day that's talking to this boss here. But the RP is shorter if you failed in some way with the like stealth. So if you left one pillar up for the first boss, or if you guessed wrong on the Among Us minigame, then it'll have the short RP. So here's the last boss. This is also a cool boss. The idea here in organized groups is to have one ranged player off to the side baiting his charge every single time. So when he chooses a target to charge, he has to pick someone out of his melee range. And that doesn't have to be a ranged player, but just someone that's not in melee range at the moment. So everyone else wants to be like somewhere right here on top of the boss at all times. Except when dodging. So everyone stacks up. So he picks our ranged player as predicted. And the goal is to make him continually stack on that spot for those charges. So what he does is he leaves a clone behind every time he charges over there. So the ranged player baiting has like this sequence figured out where he moves back onto that spot at the right time, keep the boss going in that direction, and then everybody else kind of stays back. So that Slicing Maelstrom is the hard part of the fight. So all these clones do a Slicing Maelstrom as well around them, and if you're in both of these circles at the same time, so somewhere right here in the middle, then you're gonna take double damage, which you definitely don't want to do. So that's why we stack them up over there. So we lost the rhythm of that. I didn't move the boss far enough after. And that's now a compromised arena, so now we kind of have to play chaotically. Another Blade Surge. I'm going to soak one of these tornadoes. The tornadoes stun you. You definitely want to soak at a good time when he's not about to do the whatever the attack's called. Piercing Gale. That's the one. So this Piercing Gale cast, you don't want to be stunned in a tornado because these very hard to see lines in the ground will kill you, most likely. So just make sure to soak them if you don't have an immunity in the group when you can at a convenient time. Also, as a tank, you want to continually pull them away from these images as best you can, just to keep them away from the radius of these clones. And lastly, what you should know about his AoE damage is every time he does Slicing Maelstrom, he will gain, I think, like 50% more damage or something until the third one, and then he just does full damage on it from then for the rest of the fight. So that first Slicing Maelstrom did like nothing. And he does it every 25 seconds or so. So the second time he'll do it, he'll do a little bit more. And then on the third time, I think he does full damage, and then he stays that way for the rest of the fight. So if you're doing this on high keys, try not to use anything if you can help it until the third Slicing Maelstrom. But this one you can see their health bars are kind of taking a hit. And then the next one will start trucking. Especially on Tyrannical. So what's nice about, well, it's kind of a curse and a nice thing, but if you get some of the good buffs, like 10% damage reduction, 3% health every 3 seconds, 25% increased maximum health, like all those buffs are insanely good for the second and third bosses. Or you could just get bad RNG and not get those buffs, and you're kind of screwed, or you just have a harder time. Hopefully they'll do some balancing on those buffs a little bit more, but yeah. So that's Court of Stars. I'll leave some of those reference materials in the comments. Make sure you guys include anything that I might have missed as well. There's probably something. There's a lot in this dungeon. And I'll see you in the next video.